When Darius Cole walked into that gleaming corporate tower to deliver a simple package, he had no idea his forgotten past was about to destroy everything he'd built. The black delivery driver's partial amnesia had buried the memories of a love so deep it nearly killed him. But when the white CEO whispered those devastating words, "You vowed we'd be together someday," his carefully constructed new life began to crumble. 7 years ago, her powerful father had crushed their forbidden romance and driven Darius into the night that changed everything forever. Now she was back, desperate to reclaim what she'd lost. But would the truth about that fateful accident be too much for either of them to bear? Some promises are written in blood. Some secrets destroy lives, and some love stories demand the ultimate price. But when corporate complaints threaten his livelihood and family pressure mounts from both sides, Darius must decide: forgive the woman who let him fall, or lose his second chance at happiness forever. If you're watching this incredible story of second chances and forbidden love, hit that subscribe button and tell me where you're watching from, because this romance will leave you breathless. The morning sun filtered through the kitchen blinds as Darius Cole packed his lunch into a worn canvas bag. His movements were careful and practiced. He always made the same sandwich, turkey and cheese with mustard, and always wrapped it the same way. Routine helped when your memory had holes in it. "You eating breakfast or just staring at that bread?" Ruth Cole asked from her spot at the small kitchen table. At 66, his grandmother still had sharp eyes and a sharper tongue. She stirred honey into her tea and watched him over her reading glasses. "I'm eating." Darius grabbed a banana and took a bite. "Just thinking about today's route." Ruth made a soft sound. She knew him too well. "Don't skip lunch again. Your body needs fuel, especially with all that lifting." "Yes, ma'am." He kissed the top of her gray head. Her hair smelled like the lavender soap she'd used for as long as he could remember. Some things stayed the same, even when everything else felt broken. Darius pulled out his small notebook, the kind kids used for school. Inside, he'd written reminders in careful handwriting, building addresses, customer names, little tricks that helped him do his job well. The accident 3 years ago had taken chunks of his past, but it hadn't taken his ability to work hard. His phone buzzed. A text from Mateo. "Route change. Last minute. Don't be late. Client is picky." "Everything okay?" Ruth asked, noticing his frown. "Yeah, just work stuff." He grabbed his keys and delivery bag. "I'll be home by 6. Be careful out there. And Darius?" She stood and straightened his collar like she did when he was little. "You're a good man. Don't let nobody tell you different." Something warm settled in his chest. Ruth always seemed to know when he needed to hear that. The distribution hub smelled like diesel and coffee. Darius clocked in and found Mateo near the loading dock. His supervisor was a fair man with tired eyes and calloused hands. He'd given Darius a chance when other places wouldn't hire someone with medical issues. "Morning, D." Mateo handed him a sealed envelope marked Executive Floor, Urgent. "This one goes to Heartline Logistics, Downtown Tower. Handle it personal." Darius studied the envelope. The paper was thick and expensive. "What is it?" "Above my pay grade. Just get it there safe." Mateo's expression was serious. These corporate types can make or break a contract. Play it smart. Always do. But as Darius loaded his truck and pulled into morning traffic, something felt different about today. Maybe it was the expensive envelope on his passenger seat. Maybe it was the way Ruth had looked at him, like she was sending him into battle with just her blessing. He shook his head and focused on the road. First stop was an apartment complex where he delivered packages 3 times a week. The building manager knew him by name and always had a smile ready. Normal stuff, comfortable stuff. By mid-morning, his regular deliveries were done. The headache that sometimes came with stress was starting behind his eyes. Nothing bad, just a reminder that his brain worked differently now. He drank some water and checked his notebook. Heartline Logistics. Executive Floor. Be polite. Don't mess this up. The downtown tower stretched toward the sky like a glass mountain. Security was tight, but professional. A guard in a crisp uniform checked his ID and delivery notice. "Executive floor, you said?" "Yes, sir. Urgent delivery." The guard made a call, then handed Darius a visitor badge. "Elevator bank C, 32nd floor." Darius had delivered to office buildings before, but nothing this fancy. The elevator was silent and smooth. When the doors opened, he stepped into a world of marble floors and soft lighting. Everything whispered money and power. The reception area looked like something from a magazine. Behind a curved desk sat a young woman with kind eyes and perfect posture. Her nameplate read, "Nia Bennett, Executive Assistant." "Delivery for Heartline," Darius said, keeping his voice professional. "Urgent." Nia smiled and took the envelope. "Let me get Ms. Hart for you." She pressed a button on her phone. "Evelyn, your delivery is here." Footsteps clicked across the marble. Darius turned and saw a woman walking toward him. She was tall and elegant, with blonde hair pulled back and a gray suit that probably cost more than his monthly rent. Professional, powerful, beautiful in a way that seemed untouchable. She looked up and saw his face. The woman stopped like she'd hit a wall. Her perfect composure cracked. Her green eyes went wide, then soft, then filled with something that looked like pain and hope, all mixed together. "Oh my God," she whispered. Darius felt a strange chill run down his spine. The woman was staring at him like she'd seen a ghost, or like she was looking at someone she'd lost and found again. "Ma'am?" he said carefully. Her voice came out broken and small. "You vowed we'd be together someday." The words hit him like a physical blow. Darius felt his face go hot. Behind him, he heard Nia's sharp intake of breath. Another employee at a nearby desk looked up from her computer. "I think you got the wrong person," Darius said, backing toward the elevator. His heart was pounding. "I just deliver packages." But even as he said it, something was wrong. The woman's face, her voice, they felt familiar in a way that scared him, like a song he'd heard in a dream. "Daniel," she called, using a name that made his chest tight. "Danny, please. It's me. It's Evelyn." "That's not my name." The words came out harder than he meant. "I don't know you." But his hands were shaking, and deep in his brain, something was trying to surface, something that felt important and dangerous. The woman, Evelyn, took a step closer. Her eyes were wet now. "You worked at Sal's diner. You made the best coffee in town. You said—" She stopped, looking around at the people watching. "You said we'd choose our own life someday." Darius couldn't breathe right. The elevator felt 1,000,000 miles away. "Lady, I don't know what game you're playing, but I got work to do. Please." She followed him toward the elevator. "Just 1 minute. One question. There's nothing to talk about," but his voice sounded strange to his own ears. And when she said that name, Daniel, something deep in his memory twitched like a muscle waking up. The elevator doors opened. Darius stepped inside and turned around. Evelyn stood in the hallway, looking smaller now without her confidence. She raised one hand like she wanted to touch the air between them. "I kept the promise," she whispered as the doors started to close. "I kept it for 7 years." The elevator dropped, and Darius gripped the rail so hard his knuckles went white. In the corner of his vision, he caught a flash of something. Rain on a window. The smell of coffee. A girl with blonde hair crying in a diner booth. What the hell was that? Outside the building, Darius leaned against his truck and tried to catch his breath. His phone rang. "Mateo. Did you deliver the urgent envelope? The system shows a delay." "Delivered," Darius said, keeping his voice flat. "Everything good?" You sound off. I'm fine. Just tired. All right. Finish your route and get home safe. Darius hung up and stared at the gleaming tower. Somewhere up there, a woman named Evelyn was probably wondering if he was coming back. The smart thing was to forget this ever happened. Get in his truck and drive away from whatever mess he'd stumbled into. But the name Daniel was still echoing in his head. And the way she'd looked at him, not like he was just some delivery guy, but like he was someone who mattered. 32 floors up. Evelyn Hart stood in her office with shaking hands. Nia had followed her inside and closed the door. "Did you hear what I said?" Evelyn asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Tell me I didn't just say that out loud. In front of everyone." Nia sat down across from her desk. Her assistant was only 2 years younger, but she had the wisdom to know when to speak and when to listen. "I heard it," Nia said gently. "And so did about 3 other people." Evelyn sank into her chair. "This is a disaster. I'm supposed to be the CEO. I'm supposed to have control. You're also supposed to be human." Nia leaned forward. Was that really him? The man from the diner? Evelyn opened her desk drawer and pulled out a small keychain. It was cheap plastic shaped like a coffee cup, the kind of thing you'd win at a carnival. She'd kept it for 7 years, hidden away like a secret shame. "He gave this to me the last night I saw him. Said it would remind me that we met over coffee." She turned it over in her fingers. "He told me he loved me. Said we'd be together someday when I was brave enough to choose my own life." And then what happened? My father found out, made some calls. Got Daniel fired from the diner. The words tasted bitter in her mouth. Told me if I saw him again, he'd make sure Daniel never found work anywhere in the city. Nia was quiet for a long moment. "How old were you?" 22. Young enough to be scared. Old enough to know better. Evelyn closed her fingers around the keychain. "I let it happen. I let my father destroy what we had, and I never fought back. And now he's here. Now he's here. But he doesn't remember me. Did you see his face when I said his name? He looked confused, lost." Evelyn stood up and walked to the window. Down below, she could see Darius getting into his delivery truck. "Something happened to him, Nia. Something bad. What are you going to do?" Evelyn watched the truck pull into traffic and disappear. "I'm going to talk to him. Really talk to him. Not in some public lobby where everyone can watch. That might not be wise. If he doesn't remember, then I'll help him remember. Or I'll accept that some things are gone forever." Evelyn turned from the window. "But I won't run away again. I did that once, and it was the worst mistake of my life." She picked up her phone and started scrolling through company contacts. Somewhere in the system was information about the delivery company, and somewhere in that company was a way to reach the man who used to make her coffee and call her beautiful. The man who had promised they'd choose their own life someday. The man she'd let slip away once but wouldn't lose again. Downtown traffic was stop and go, giving Darius too much time to think. Every red light brought back another flash of that woman's face. Evelyn. She'd said her name was Evelyn. His next delivery was at an apartment complex in a rough part of town, the kind of place where people minded their own business and didn't ask questions. As he carried packages up 3 flights of stairs, a resident started yelling at him for blocking the hallway. "Move that cart! People live here." "Sorry, sir. Just finishing up." Darius kept his voice calm, but the stress was building behind his eyes. The headache was getting worse. "You delivery people think you own the place. No respect." Darius finished his job and got back to his truck. In the driver's seat, he pulled out his water bottle and took 3 slow breaths. His notebook was open on the seat beside him, and he wrote down a reminder. Apartment 3B. Angry man. Be extra quiet next time. His phone rang. Unknown number. "Hello? Is this Darius Cole?" The voice was professional but warm. Female. Yes, who's asking? This is Nia Bennett from Heartline Logistics. We spoke earlier today. Darius felt his stomach drop. Look, if there's a complaint, no complaint. Ms. Hart would like to speak with you. Privately. She asked me to see if you'd be willing to meet. I don't think that's a good idea. She said to tell you she's sorry for surprising you today. She knows you have questions. Questions? That was putting it mildly. I got work to finish. Of course. Maybe this evening? There's a diner called Sal's about 10 minutes from your route. Do you know it? The name hit him like electricity. Sal's Diner. Why did that sound so familiar? Yeah, I know where it is. Would 7 o'clock work? Ms. Hart will be there. Just her. No business, no pressure. Darius closed his eyes. The smart thing was to say no. The smart thing was to hang up and pretend this day never happened. She said one more thing, Nia continued. She said to tell you that she kept the keychain. The line went quiet except for the sound of Darius breathing. Sir, are you there? 7 o'clock, he heard himself say. But if this is some kind of setup... It's not. She just wants to explain. After Nia hung up, Darius sat in his truck for a long time. He had 3 more deliveries to make, but all he could think about was a plastic keychain and a woman's voice saying his name. A name that wasn't the one he used now. Daniel. She'd called him Daniel. And somewhere in the damaged corners of his memory, that name felt like coming home. Sal's Diner looked exactly like every small-town restaurant should. Red vinyl booths, black and white checkered floors, and the smell of coffee that had been brewing since morning. Darius sat in a corner booth, his back to the wall where he could see the whole room. Old habits from his delivery job. Always know your exits. He'd been here 10 minutes early, nursing a cup of coffee and trying to calm his nerves. The place felt familiar, but everything felt familiar these days in a strange, broken way, like looking at old photos of someone else's life. At exactly 7 o'clock, Evelyn Hart walked through the door. She looked different without her CEO armor. Jeans instead of a business suit. Her blonde hair was down, and she wore a simple blue sweater that made her eyes look even greener. She was still beautiful, but now she looked real, human. She spotted him and walked over, her steps careful and slow. "Thank you for coming," she said, sliding into the booth across from him. "I wasn't sure you would." "I almost didn't." Darius wrapped his hands around his coffee mug. "Lady Evelyn. My name is Evelyn. Evelyn. I don't know what you think you remember, but I've never seen you before today." She flinched like he'd slapped her. "You really don't remember, at all." "Remember what? Some story about promises and diners?" His voice came out sharper than he meant. "Look, I had an accident a few years back. Head injury. There's stuff I don't remember. But if I knew someone like you, I think I'd remember that." "Someone like me?" "Rich, powerful, out of my league." He gestured around the diner. "This isn't your world." Evelyn was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was soft. "It used to be. 7 years ago, I came here every Tuesday and Thursday. Always ordered the same thing, coffee with cream and a slice of apple pie. And there was this guy who worked here. He made the best coffee in town and always saved me the corner piece of pie because he knew it was my favorite." Something twisted in Darius's chest. Stop. His name was Daniel Cole. Danny. He had the most beautiful smile, and he used to write little jokes on my napkins to make me laugh. I said stop. He told me he was saving money to go back to school. Wanted to be a teacher. He said kids deserved someone who believed in them. Evelyn's eyes were bright with tears now. And I was falling in love with him. but I was too scared to admit it because my father had plans for my life that didn't include a guy who worked at a diner. The coffee mug was shaking in Darius's hands. In his mind, he could almost see it. A girl with sad eyes sitting in this exact booth. The smell of apple pie. The sound of rain on windows. "You're making this up," he whispered. Evelyn reached into her purse and pulled out the plastic keychain. She set it on the table between them. "You gave me this the last night we talked. October 15th, 7 years ago. You said it would remind me that we met over coffee and that someday, when I was brave enough to choose my own life, we'd be together." Darius stared at the cheap little coffee cup. Something about it made his heart race. "The next week you were gone. Fired. No one would tell me why." Evelyn's voice was steady now, but her hands were shaking. "I found out later that my father made some calls. Used his influence to get you blacklisted from restaurants in the city. He said you were a distraction I couldn't afford. And you let him do it." The words came out before Darius could stop them. He didn't know where they came from, but they felt true. "Yes," Evelyn's voice cracked. "I was 22, and scared, and stupid. I let him destroy what we had because I thought I had no choice. And I've regretted it every single day since." The waitress came by to refill Darius's coffee. She was an older woman with kind eyes and gray hair pulled back in a ponytail. She looked at him for a long moment. "Danny? Danny Cole? Oh my God, it is you!" She set down the coffee pot and put her hand to her chest. "Honey, where have you been? You just disappeared." Darius felt the world tilt sideways. What? You worked here for 2 years. Best employee we ever had. The customers loved you." The waitress looked between him and Evelyn. "And this is your girl. Evie, right? You two were so cute together. What happened to you, honey? You look different." Evelyn spoke up gently. "He was in an accident. He doesn't remember everything." The waitress's face went soft with sympathy. "Oh, sweetheart, I'm so sorry. But you're here now, and that's what matters." She patted Darius's shoulder. "Your old apron's probably still in the back if you want it." When she walked away, the silence at their table felt heavy as stone. "Her name is Betty," Evelyn said quietly. "She used to worry about you working double shifts. Always made sure you ate something during your break." Darius closed his eyes. In the darkness, he could almost see her, an older woman with gentle hands putting a plate in front of him. Meatloaf and mashed potatoes. Home-cooked comfort. "This isn't real," he said. "It's real. You're real. What we had was real." Evelyn reached across the table like she wanted to touch his hand, then stopped. "I know this is a lot. I know you have every reason not to believe me. Why now? 7 years, and you show up now?" "Because I never stopped looking for you. I hired investigators. I checked every Daniel Cole in 3 states. But you changed your name. You go by Darius now." That was true. After the accident, when he couldn't remember his past anyway, starting over with a new name had felt like freedom. Ruth had helped him with the paperwork, said sometimes a person needed to choose who they wanted to be. "The accident," he said slowly. "What do you know about it?" Evelyn hesitated. "I know it was a car crash, 3 years ago. You were unconscious for 6 days." "How do you know that?" "Because I was there, in the hospital. I sat in that waiting room for 3 days before they told me I wasn't family and couldn't get information." Her voice was barely above a whisper. "I tried to see you, but your grandmother said it was better if I stayed away. That you were starting over and didn't need reminders of a past that hurt you." Ruth. His grandmother had known about this woman all along. "She was protecting you," Evelyn continued. "And she was right. You needed time to heal. But when I saw you today, When I looked in your eyes and saw that you were okay, that you were strong, I couldn't stay away anymore. Darius stood up abruptly. The booth felt too small, the diner too bright. I need air. He walked outside and leaned against his truck. The evening was cool, and traffic moved by in a steady stream of headlights. Normal life. Simple life. The kind of life he'd built for himself after the accident. No complications, no drama, no women who looked at him like he was supposed to save them. Evelyn followed him outside but kept her distance. "I'm not asking you to remember," she said. "I'm not asking you to be someone you're not. I just wanted you to know that you were loved, that what we had mattered." "And then what? We ride off into the sunset? You leave your fancy life to be with a delivery driver?" "I don't care what you do for work. I never did. Your father will." "My father doesn't get a vote anymore. I'm 29 years old and I run my own company. I've spent 7 years building a life that no one else controls." Darius looked at her. Really looked. She was different from the scared girl he was starting to remember in fragments. Stronger. More sure of herself. But her eyes were the same. Sad and hopeful all at once. "This is crazy," he said. "I know. I don't remember loving you. I don't remember promising you anything. I know that too. So what are you asking for?" Evelyn stepped closer, close enough that he could smell her perfume. Something light and clean that reminded him of springtime. "A chance," she said. "A chance to start over. To see if what we had is still there, or if it's just a memory that I've been carrying around for too long." Before Darius could answer, his phone rang. The caller ID showed his supervisor's name. "I have to take this," he said, stepping away. "Mateo, what's up?" "D, we got a problem. I just got a call from Heartline Logistics. Some kind of formal complaint about unprofessional behavior. You want to tell me what happened up there today?" Darius felt his stomach drop. What kind of complaint? The message was vague. Something about inappropriate interaction with executive staff. "Look, I know you're a good guy, but these corporate types can destroy our contract." "What the hell did you do?" "I didn't do anything wrong. I delivered the package and left." "Then why are they calling my boss? Why is there paperwork with your name on it?" Mateo's voice was getting louder. "I stuck my neck out giving you this job. Don't make me regret it." The line went dead. Darius stared at his phone, then looked at Evelyn. "What did you do?" he asked. "What do you mean?" "My supervisor just got a complaint about me. From your company. About unprofessional behavior." Evelyn's face went pale. "I didn't file a complaint. I would never. But somebody did. And now my job is on the line." All the anger and confusion of the day came rushing back. "Is this some kind of game to you? Poor delivery boy doesn't know his place, so you have him fired." "No, Darius, I swear I didn't." She pulled out her phone. "Let me call Nia. There has to be a mistake." "Don't." He held up his hand. "Don't make it worse." "But if there's been a misunderstanding." "There's no misunderstanding. This is what happens when people like me get too close to people like you. We get reminded of our place." He got in his truck and started the engine. Through the windshield, he could see Evelyn standing on the sidewalk, her phone pressed to her ear. She looked small and lost, and for a second he wanted to get out and tell her it was okay. But it wasn't okay. Nothing about this was okay. He drove home through empty streets, his hands gripping the steering wheel too tight. At every red light, pieces of memory flickered through his mind. A girl laughing at something he'd written on a napkin. The taste of apple pie. The sound of rain on diner windows. And underneath it all, a feeling he couldn't name. Like something precious had been taken away from him once. And now it was happening again. Ruth was waiting when he got home. She was sitting at the kitchen table with 2 cups of tea, like she'd known he'd need to talk. "Hard day," she asked, not looking up from her knitting. You could say that. Darius sat down across from her. Ruth, I need you to tell me something, and I need you to be honest. I'm always honest with you. Did you know there was a woman from before the accident? Someone named Evelyn? Ruth's hands went still. The silence stretched between them like a held breath. Ruth? Yes, she said quietly. I knew. The admission hit him like a physical blow. Why didn't you tell me? Because you were healing. Because you were building a new life. And that girl was part of an old one that brought you nothing but pain. That wasn't your choice to make. Ruth set down her knitting and looked at him with eyes that had seen too much. When you were in that hospital bed, unconscious for 6 days, she came every single day. Sat in that waiting room like she had a right to be there. Like she hadn't been part of the reason you were there in the first place. What do you mean? You were driving home from looking for work. Again. For the 5th time that week. You'd been blacklisted from every restaurant in the city because her daddy made some phone calls. You were angry and hurt, and not paying attention to the road. The words hit him like pieces of glass. She caused the accident? The accident caused the accident. But the reason you were driving angry in the rain at midnight? The reason you were desperate for work and running on no sleep? That goes back to her and her family. Darius put his head in his hands. Everything was too much. The memories that wouldn't come back clearly, the job that was now in jeopardy, the woman who claimed to love him, but whose family had destroyed his life once already. She's different now, he said. Is she? Or is she just older? I don't know. I don't know anything anymore. Ruth reached across the table and took his hand. I love you, boy, more than my own life. And I will always protect you from people who think they can use you and throw you away. But you're a grown man now. And if you want to make the same mistake twice, that's your choice to make. That night, Darius lay in bed staring at the ceiling. His head was pounding, and every time he closed his eyes, he saw flashes of a life he couldn't quite remember. A girl with green eyes. The smell of coffee. Rain on windows. A promise made in a diner booth. Someday we'll choose our own life. Had he really said that? Had he really believed that a poor kid from the wrong side of town and a rich girl with a powerful father could make it work? Maybe he had. Maybe he'd been young and stupid and full of hope. But now he wasn't young anymore. He was 30 years old with a job that barely paid the bills and a brain that couldn't hold on to half his memories. He was nobody special. Just a guy who delivered packages and took care of his grandmother. And Evelyn Hart was a CEO with a corner office and power he couldn't imagine. Some things never changed, and some gaps were too wide to bridge, no matter how much you wanted to. But as he drifted off to sleep, one thought followed him into dreams. She had kept the keychain. For 7 years, she had kept a cheap piece of plastic that reminded her of a promise they'd made. That had to mean something. Didn't it? Across town, Evelyn sat in her empty office building, staring at her phone. She'd called Nia 5 times, but the calls went straight to voicemail. She'd tried calling the main number for the delivery company, but they were closed for the night. Somewhere, there was a misunderstanding that was threatening to destroy Darius's job, and she was the only one who could fix it. She thought about the way he'd looked at her in the parking lot, like she'd betrayed him all over again, like he'd been foolish to trust her even for an hour. Maybe he was right. Maybe she was still the same scared girl who let other people make her choices. Maybe she'd never really changed at all. But as she sat alone in her glass tower, surrounded by all the success and power she'd built, one thing was clear. None of it mattered if she lost him again. This time, she was going to fight. The next morning came too early. Darius woke before his alarm, his mind already racing with worry about his job. In the shower, he practiced what he'd say to Mateo. How do you explain something you don't understand yourself? Ruth was at the stove making eggs when he came into the kitchen. She moved slower than usual, like she'd aged 10 years overnight. "You sleep at all?" she asked without turning around. "Some." He poured coffee into his travel mug. "Ruth, about what you told me last night. I said what needed saying. Nothing more. But if she really cared about me, why didn't she fight for us back then?" Ruth set down her spatula and faced him. "Baby, you can't judge a 22-year-old girl by what you know now. Fear makes people do stupid things. The question is, what's she doing now?" Before Darius could answer, his phone rang. Mateo. "Get here early," his supervisor said without greeting. "We need to talk before your shift." The line went dead. Darius stared at the phone, his stomach dropping. "I might not have a job after today," he said. Ruth walked over and straightened his collar like always. "You're a good man with a strong back and an honest heart. Whatever happens, we'll figure it out." But as Darius drove to the distribution hub, he couldn't shake the feeling that everything was about to fall apart. At Heartline Logistics, Evelyn sat in her office staring at her computer screen. She'd been there since 6 a.m., trying to trace the complaint that had been filed against Darius. Every email, every phone call, every piece of paperwork that left her building went through multiple systems. Finally, she found it. The complaint hadn't come from her office directly. It had come from the building's security department after a guard reported unusual behavior during a delivery. The guard had overheard her emotional outburst and filed a standard incident report. It was all a misunderstanding. A terrible, stupid misunderstanding that could cost Darius his job. "Nia," she called. Her assistant appeared in the doorway, looking concerned. "You're here early. Get me the head of building security on the phone, and then get me the contact information for Darius's delivery company. I need to fix this." "Evelyn, maybe you should think—" "No thinking, just action. I let fear control my choices once before. I won't do it again." Across town, Darius sat in Mateo's small office above the loading dock. His supervisor looked tired and stressed, with papers scattered across his desk. "The complaint came through official channels," Mateo said, not looking up from his files. "Security report, filed yesterday afternoon, says there was an inappropriate personal interaction between you and executive staff." "It wasn't inappropriate. She knew me from before, from years ago." "Before what? You've never mentioned knowing anyone at Heartline." Darius hesitated. How do you explain memory loss and lost love to a man who just wants to keep his contracts safe? "It's complicated." "Complicated doesn't pay the bills, Dee. These corporate accounts keep us in business. If they think we can't maintain professional standards—" Mateo finally looked up. "Help me understand. What happened up there?" "She recognized me. From before my accident. We used to. We knew each other." "Knew each other how?" The words felt impossible to say. "We dated, 7 years ago." Mateo leaned back in his chair. "Jesus, Dee. You've been delivering to your ex-girlfriend? And you didn't think to mention this?" "I didn't remember her until yesterday. The accident took a lot of my memories." For a moment, Mateo's hard expression softened. He knew about Darius's medical issues, had hired him despite them. "Look, I want to help you. You're a good worker, and I respect what you've been through. But the client is threatening to pull our contract. My boss is asking questions. I need you to tell me, is this woman going to be a problem?" Before Darius could answer, Mateo's phone rang. "Mateo Reyes. Yes, this is about the complaint." "What? Are you sure?" "Okay, thank you." He hung up and looked at Darius with confusion. "That was Heartline's head of security. He says the complaint has been withdrawn. Says it was filed in error, and there's no issue with your conduct." "What does that mean?" "It means someone with power made this go away." Mateo's eyes were sharp. "Someone who cares about protecting you. Darius felt something twist in his chest. Relief mixed with something else. Something that felt like hope. So I still have my job? For now. But Dee? Mateo leaned forward. Whatever's going on between you and this woman, handle it carefully. Rich people's problems have a way of crushing regular folks. That afternoon, Darius was delivering to a small office building when his phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Can we meet? I fixed the work situation. Just want to explain. Evelyn. He stared at the message for a long time before typing back. How did you get my number? Ask Nia to call your company. I know it's forward, but I needed to reach you. Why did you fix it? Because it was my fault it happened. And because you don't deserve to pay for my mistakes. Darius sat in his truck, watching people walk by on the sidewalk. Normal people with normal problems. Part of him wanted to delete the message and pretend this whole thing never happened. But another part of him, the part that had been waking up slowly since yesterday, wanted answers. Same diner. 7 p.m. Thank you. That evening, Evelyn arrived at Sal's diner 15 minutes early. She chose the same booth as the night before and ordered coffee while she waited. Her hands were shaking slightly, and she couldn't stop checking the door. When Darius walked in, he looked different. Still guarded, but not as angry. He slid into the booth across from her and got straight to business. Explain. The complaint came from building security. A guard overheard what I said to you and filed a standard report. It went through automated systems and got flagged as a potential issue. Evelyn wrapped her hands around her coffee mug. I spent all morning tracking it down and getting it reversed. Just like that? You made a phone call and it disappeared? I had to explain the situation to several people. I had to admit that I knew you personally and that my reaction was emotional, not professional. She met his eyes. I had to tell the truth. Darius studied her face. What truth? That I've been looking for you for 7 years. That seeing you yesterday brought back feelings I thought I'd buried. That I acted unprofessionally because I was overwhelmed by emotion. And they accepted that? They're requiring me to avoid all future deliveries from your company. Any packages for me will go through Naya or someone else. Evelyn's voice was steady, but Darius could see the cost of these admissions in her eyes. It's a small price to pay to keep you from losing your job. Why? The question came out rougher than he meant. Why do you care what happens to me? Because I love you. The words hung in the air between them, simple and impossible all at once. You don't know me anymore, Darius said quietly. The person you loved might not exist anymore. Then let me get to know who you are now. Betty the waitress came over to refill their coffee. She smiled at them like they were old friends returning home. You two working things out? She asked. We're trying, Evelyn said. Good. Life's too short to waste on pride. Betty patted Darius's shoulder. Your grandmother called here once, about a year after you left. Asked if we'd heard from you. I told her we hadn't, but if we did, we'd tell you she was looking. After Betty walked away, Darius felt something click into place. Ruth called here? After your accident, I think. She was trying to find out if you'd been in contact with anyone from your old life. She never told me that. Maybe she was protecting you. Or maybe she was gathering information to decide if the past was worth remembering. Darius thought about his grandmother's words from the night before. About fear making people do stupid things. About second chances and grown-up choices. Tell me about the accident, he said. Evelyn hesitated. Are you sure? I need to know. You'd been looking for work for weeks. My father's interference had made it almost impossible for you to get hired anywhere. You were angry and frustrated and... She paused, choosing her words carefully. The night it happened, you called me. Darius felt his breath catch. I called you? You'd been drinking, not a lot, but enough that I could hear it in your voice. You said you were tired of fighting a system that was rigged against you. You said maybe we should just run away together, leave the city and start over somewhere else. What did you say? Evelyn's voice got very small. I said I couldn't. I said I had responsibilities, commitments. I was scared, Darius. I was 22 and scared of disappointing everyone, so I hung up and went for a drive. In the rain, on empty roads, going too fast. Her eyes filled with tears. The police said you hit black ice and slid into a tree. If you hadn't been wearing your seatbelt, I might have died. Yes. They sat in silence for a moment. Around them, the diner hummed with quiet evening conversation. Normal people living normal lives, unaware that two hearts were being pieced back together one memory at a time. Do you blame me? Evelyn asked. Darius considered the question seriously. For the accident? No. I made the choice to drive angry. But for everything before that? For letting your father destroy what we had without fighting back? He met her eyes. Yeah, I blame you for that. The honesty was brutal, but it was also clean. No sugarcoating, no excuses. I blamed myself too, Evelyn said. Every day for 7 years. Good, you should have. But I want to do better now, if you'll let me. Darius looked around the diner. At Betty wiping down tables, at the other customers eating their simple meals, at the life he'd built for himself. Small, safe, predictable. I don't know if I can trust you, he said. I understand. And I don't know if I can be what you need. I'm not the same person I was 7 years ago. I'm not asking you to be. What are you asking for? Evelyn leaned forward slightly. Time. Patience. A chance to prove that I've learned something from my mistakes. And if your father tries to interfere again, then I'll fight him. Publicly, if I have to. What about your reputation? Your business? I spent 7 years building a life that looked perfect on the outside but felt empty inside. I won't make that mistake again. Darius finished his coffee and stood up. I need time to think. Of course. But Evelyn, he paused by the table. Thank you for fixing the work thing, for being honest about the accident. It means something. She nodded, not trusting her voice. As Darius walked to the door, he felt lighter somehow. Like a weight he didn't know he'd been carrying had been lifted from his shoulders. The truth was ugly sometimes, but it was also freeing. Outside, the evening air was cool and clean. He had a lot to think about and a difficult conversation ahead with Ruth. But for the first time since the accident, he felt like he was moving forward instead of just surviving. Behind him in the diner, Evelyn sat alone in the booth, staring at the plastic keychain she'd pulled from her purse. Tomorrow, she would face questions from her family and her board. Tomorrow, she would deal with the consequences of choosing truth over convenience. But tonight, she had hope, and sometimes, hope was enough to start with. The next morning brought unexpected visitors to the Hart family offices. Darius arrived at the distribution hub to find Ruth waiting by his truck, dressed in her best coat and carrying her good purse. What are you doing here? He asked. Going with you today. Ruth, I have deliveries. I called your supervisor, told him I needed to ride along for medical reasons. He said it was fine as long as I stayed in the truck. Darius studied his grandmother's determined face. This is about Evelyn, isn't it? This is about making sure my grandson doesn't repeat old mistakes. Yours or hers. As they drove through the city, Ruth was unusually quiet. Finally, she spoke. I may have been wrong to keep her away from you in the hospital. The admission surprised him. Ruth never said she was wrong about anything. Why are you telling me this now? Because watching you these past 2 days, I can see something waking up in you. Something that's been asleep since the accident. And maybe... She paused, looking out the window. Maybe some things are worth the risk. First, their last delivery of the day was downtown, just 2 blocks from Heartline Logistics. As they drove past the gleaming tower, Ruth pointed toward the building. "Pull over," she said. "What?" "Pull over. I want to see her." "Ruth, that's not a good idea." "Park the truck, Darius. It's time." Against his better judgment, Darius found a parking space. Ruth got out of the truck with surprising energy and walked toward the building's main entrance. He had no choice but to follow. The lobby was all marble and glass, impressive and intimidating. Ruth walked up to the security desk like she owned the place. "I need to speak with Evelyn Hart," she announced. The guard looked confused. "Do you have an appointment, ma'am?" "Tell her Ruth Cole is here. She'll know who I am." 10 minutes later, Evelyn stepped out of the elevator. She'd clearly come down in a hurry. No jacket, hair slightly mussed, eyes wide with surprise and concern. She walked straight to Ruth, ignoring the curious stares of people in the lobby. "Mrs. Cole," she said softly. "I wasn't expecting—" "I came to look at you," Ruth interrupted, "to see if you're the same foolish girl who broke my grandson's heart." Evelyn stood straighter, meeting Ruth's sharp gaze directly. "I'm not the same person I was 7 years ago, but the part of me that loved your grandson, that part hasn't changed. Love isn't enough. Love without backbone is just pretty words. You're right. And I've spent 7 years growing a backbone." Ruth studied her for a long moment. Behind them, Darius watched the exchange with fascination and growing respect for both women. "My grandson is a good man," Ruth said finally. "He deserves better than someone who runs when things get hard." "Yes, he does. And I intend to be better. Prove it." It wasn't a question or a suggestion. It was a challenge. Evelyn nodded slowly. "I will." Ruth turned and walked back to Darius, leaving him to follow. But as they reached the door, she called back over her shoulder. "Girl?" Evelyn looked up. "Yes, ma'am?" "He likes his coffee with 1 sugar, and he still writes little jokes on napkins when he's nervous." Outside, Ruth walked to the truck without explanation. Darius caught up with her, his mind spinning. "What was that about?" "Research," Ruth said simply. "I needed to see if she'd run or if she'd stand up to a tough old woman with opinions." "And?" She stood up. "That's something." As they drove home, Darius thought about the look in Evelyn's eyes when Ruth challenged her. There had been fear there, but also determination. And something else. A quiet strength that reminded him of the woman he was slowly starting to remember. Maybe people could change. Maybe second chances were possible. Maybe it was time to find out. The next morning, Darius woke up with a strange feeling in his chest. Not the usual worry or confusion that had followed him since the accident. Something lighter, something that felt almost like excitement. He found Ruth in the kitchen, humming while she made breakfast. She looked different too, more relaxed, like she'd made peace with something important. "You're up early," she said, not turning from the stove. "Couldn't sleep. Too much thinking." He poured coffee and sat at the table. "Ruth, what you did yesterday, I did what needed doing. That girl needed to know she's got people watching out for you now." "And what did you think?" "Really?" Ruth set a plate of eggs and toast in front of him. "I think she's scared, but trying not to show it. I think she's learned some hard lessons. And I think..." She paused, considering her words. "I think maybe I was holding on to old hurts that weren't helping anybody." "Does that mean you approve?" "It means I approve of you making your own choices, with your eyes wide open." After breakfast, Darius drove his usual route, but everything looked different. The city seemed brighter, full of possibilities, instead of just obstacles. When his phone buzzed with a text, he pulled over to check it. "Good morning." I know you said you needed time, but would you like to have lunch today? Somewhere public, no pressure, just company. Evelyn. He stared at the message for a long time. The smart thing was to wait longer, make her prove herself more. But something in him was tired of being careful all the time. Okay, but I picked the place. Anywhere you want. Joe's sandwich shop on 5th Street. Noon. I'll be there. Joe's was the opposite of fancy. Plastic chairs, fluorescent lights, and the best pastrami in the city. It was where Darius ate lunch when he had time to sit down. A place where he felt normal and comfortable. Evelyn arrived exactly at noon, and Darius was surprised to see her dressed simply. Jeans, a green sweater, and sneakers. Her hair was pulled back in a ponytail, and she looked younger somehow. More like the girl he was starting to remember. "This place smells amazing," she said, sliding into the booth across from him. "Best sandwiches in the city. No frills, just good food." They ordered from Joe himself, a big man with kind eyes who knew Darius by name. When Joe walked away, an awkward silence settled between them. "This feels weird," Darius said finally. "Good weird or bad weird?" "I don't know yet." Evelyn smiled, and for a second, he saw something familiar. A flash of the girl who used to laugh at his jokes written on napkins. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "Sure." "What do you remember about us? Really remember? Not just what I've told you." Darius thought about it seriously. Pieces, small things. The smell of apple pie. Rain on windows. Someone laughing. He paused. The feeling of being important to someone. You are. Was I happy? Before everything fell apart? The happiest I'd ever seen anyone. You had this way of making everything feel possible, even when life was hard. You'd work double shifts, but still find energy to make me laugh. You'd save your tips for weeks to take me to a movie. Evelyn's voice got soft. You made me feel like I was worth choosing, even when I didn't feel worth much of anything. And then your father stepped in. And then I let him step in. Let's be honest about what really happened. Joe brought their sandwiches. Thick pastrami on rye for Darius, turkey and Swiss for Evelyn. They ate in comfortable silence for a while, and Darius realized this felt right. Simple and easy and real. "I've been thinking about what Ruth said yesterday," Evelyn said finally. "About proving yourself. About having a backbone. She was right. Love isn't enough without courage. And 7 years ago, I didn't have any. And now I'm about to find out." Before Darius could ask what she meant, Evelyn's phone rang. She looked at the caller ID, and her face went pale. "My father," she said. "I have to take this." "Evelyn." The voice was loud enough that Darius could hear it from across the table, cold and commanding. "Where are you? The board meeting started 10 minutes ago." "I'm having lunch. I'll be there in an hour." "You'll be here now, and we need to discuss this. Situation with the delivery person. It's become a liability." Evelyn met Darius's eyes across the table. "His name is Darius, and he's not a liability. He's someone I care about. Don't be ridiculous. End this infatuation before it damages everything we've built." "We?" Evelyn's voice got stronger. "You mean everything I've built. My company, my reputation, my life. A life I made possible. A life I earned, and I'll live it however I choose." The silence on the phone was deadly. When Graham Hart spoke again, his voice was ice cold. "If you continue this embarrassment, there will be consequences. The board has concerns about your judgment." "Then maybe it's time for the board to find a new CEO." She hung up and set the phone on the table with shaking hands. "Evelyn," Darius started. "No, don't tell me I shouldn't have done that. Don't tell me to be smart or practical." Her eyes were fierce now. I spent 7 years being smart. I spent 7 years building a life that looked perfect but felt empty. I won't spend 7 more being afraid. What about your job? What about it? I'll find another job. I'll start another company. But I won't give up the chance to be happy because someone else thinks it's inappropriate. Darius looked at her. Really looked. This wasn't the scared girl who had let her father control her life. This was a woman who had found her strength and wasn't afraid to use it. You might lose everything, he said quietly. I already lost everything once when I lost you. I won't make that mistake again. Something shifted in Darius's chest. A door opening that he'd kept locked for 3 years. Maybe longer. I still don't remember everything, he said. That's okay. And I still don't trust Easy. I understand. But I think... He paused, searching for the right words. I think I'd like to try. If you're willing to be patient while I figure out how to do this. Evelyn's smile was like sunrise after a long night. I have all the time in the world. They left Joe's together and walked slowly through downtown. Past office buildings and coffee shops. Past normal people living normal lives. Darius found himself noticing details he'd missed before. The way Evelyn's hand swung near his as they walked. The way she looked at everything like she was seeing it for the first time. Can I ask you something now? She said. Sure. What are you afraid of? Really afraid of? Being a project? Being someone you think you can save or fix? He stopped walking and turned to face her. Rich people have a way of making regular folks feel like charity cases, and I've got enough broken pieces without adding that. I don't want to save you. I want to choose you. There's a difference. Is there? One makes you a victim, the other makes you an equal partner. They were standing outside a small park now. Families with children, elderly couples on benches, teenagers playing basketball. Real life happening all around them. I'm scared too, Evelyn admitted. Scared that you'll decide I'm not worth the trouble. Scared that I've changed too much or not enough. Scared that I've been holding on to a memory that can't be real again. Then we're both scared. Yeah. Maybe that's okay. Maybe being scared means it matters. Evelyn looked at him with something that might have been wonder. Ruth said that too. Ruth's smart like that. They found an empty bench and sat down. Around them, the city moved and breathed and lived. Normal rhythms, normal problems, normal joys. The kind of life Darius had built for himself. Simple and honest and real. I want to tell you something, he said. About the person I am now. Okay. I'm not the same guy I was 7 years ago. The accident changed me. Made me quieter, maybe. More careful. I don't dream as big as I used to. Dreams can grow back. Maybe. But I need you to know that if we do this, if we try again, you're not getting the young guy with big plans and endless energy. You're getting someone who takes things slow and steady. Someone who might never remember all of what we had before. Evelyn was quiet for a moment, watching children play on the swings. Can I tell you what I see when I look at you now? She said finally. Sure. I see someone who survived something terrible and came out stronger. I see someone who takes care of his grandmother and does honest work and treats people with respect. I see someone who's careful with trust because he knows how much it costs. She turned to face him. I see a man, not a boy, and I like what I see. Something warm spread through Darius's chest. Acceptance. Not of who he used to be, but of who he was now. So what do we do? He asked. We start over, slow and careful and honest. We see if what we had was real or just memory, and if it was real. Oh, she smiled. We see if we can build something even better. No family pressure, no trying to manage what people think. No pressure. Just us, figuring it out one day at a time. Darius thought about Ruth's words that morning, about making his own choices with his eyes wide open, about maybe taking a chance on something that felt worth the risk. "Okay," he said. "Let's see what happens." Evelyn's smile could have powered the whole city. "Really?" "Really, but I have conditions." "Name them." "We take it slow, like really slow. I'm talking weeks or months before anything serious." "Agreed." "Ruth gets veto power. If she thinks you're bad for me, I listen to her." "Fair enough, she's earned that right. And no trying to fix my life with money or connections. I like my job. I like my simple apartment. I don't need rescuing. I wouldn't dream of it. One more thing." Darius stood up and held out his hand. "Can I walk you back to work? Like a normal guy walking a normal girl to her normal job?" Evelyn took his hand, and it felt like coming home. "There's nothing normal about any of this. But yes, I'd like that." They walked back through the city streets, past all the places where their different worlds intersected. The fancy office buildings and the small shops, the expensive restaurants and the corner delis. All of it part of the same city, the same life, the same possibility. At the entrance to Heartline Logistics, Evelyn stopped. "I might get fired today," she said. "For what?" "For choosing you over my father's approval. And if you do, then I'll figure something else out, with or without your help." "With," Darius said without hesitation. "If you get fired for being with me, then we figure it out together. Promise?" "Promise." She stood on her tiptoes and kissed his cheek, light and quick and sweet. "Thank you for giving us another chance. Thank you for being worth it." As Evelyn disappeared into her glass tower, Darius walked back to his truck feeling lighter than he had in 3 years. Maybe longer. The future was uncertain. They had a lot to figure out, a lot of trust to rebuild, a lot of obstacles to navigate. But for the first time since the accident, he wasn't just surviving. He was living. And maybe, just maybe, he was falling in love all over again. That evening he sat in Ruth's kitchen while she made dinner. She moved around the small space with practiced ease, humming the same tune she'd hummed when he was little. "How was lunch?" she asked without turning around. "Good, really good. And I think I'm going to try. We both are." Ruth nodded like she'd expected this. "Good. Life's too short to waste on fear." "Ruth?" "Yes, baby? Thank you. For protecting me when I needed it. And for knowing when to let go." She turned and smiled at him, the same smile that had welcomed him home every day for 30 years. "That's what love does, Darius. It holds on when you need holding, and it lets go when you need growing. Now set the table. Dinner's almost ready." As Darius laid out plates and silverware, his phone buzzed with a text. "Made it through the board meeting. Still employed. Still choosing you. Good night. Evelyn." He smiled and typed back, "Good night. See you tomorrow. Counting on it." Outside, the city settled into evening rhythms. People heading home to families, to dinners, to simple pleasures and quiet moments. Normal life, lived by normal people who chose each other every day in small ways and large ones. And in a small apartment above a corner store, a man who had forgotten how to hope was learning to remember. Not just the past, but the future. Not just what was lost, but what could still be found. Some promises were worth keeping, even when you forgot you'd made them. Some love was worth fighting for, even when the fight seemed impossible. And sometimes, the best way forward was to start over. Not as who you used to be, but as who you were brave enough to become. In the distance, thunder rumbled softly. But this time, the rain would be gentle. This time, it would help things grow.